Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this video, we'll be talking about using text in 3Ds and the 3D tools available in Photoshop to give us some interesting text effects. We're looking at a few things. This is just a basic text on a surface technique. I'll show you a quick and easy way to make this kind of circular logo thing in here, and then we'll put text as a lighted sign on a wall. So there's a few different ideas in here. Now I'm not going to be going into any great depth on how to use 3D. I could spend several videos showing you all the different 3D tools, but I'll be showing you what we're using for these, and it'll give you a good basic understanding about how the 3D works and how you can use that with text. We'll start off with just doing something real basic here. And for this, I'm going to be using a typeface. You can see it right there. There's the actual text I used originally on here. And this is a typeface called Showcard Gothic. Now, if you don't happen to have this, you can find this easily online. Just go onto Google or someplace and do a search for Showcard Gothic font, and you'll find it downloadable lots of places. So there's our typeface. Let's start off by making a new file. File new. Here we go, and I'll just change my size a little bit here. Choose OK. Here's our nice basic file. Let's put some text onto this. Grab the type tool, have my type set at black, and click in here. Again, I'm using that Showcard Gothic. An easy way to resize your text is just to make sure that you're on the text layer, edit menu, transform scale, and then just grab the sides and pull the text out to whatever size it is that you want to have for your text. Something kind of like that's pretty good. When I click on the Move tool or on the OK tool here, and then back to our text tool, you'll see that it actually changed the font size of the text. So it's still text. I can still edit this text. That's just a real fast, easy way to adjust your size. Okay, so we have our text. Now we need to convert this text into a 3D object. Now before I do that, I always like to just make a copy of my layer, put down on my new layer button. There's my copy. I'll just hide that. So I can always go back to that if I need to in the future. Oh, right. Go up to the Type tool and extrude to 3D. There we go. It's now in the 3D environment. I'm currently using Photoshop CS6. If you're using Photoshop CS5, the 3D tools are over here on your tools panel. It's a little different positioning for that, but it's the same basic thing. If you click into the type, I can come in here and actually grab my different control handles. For instance, there's one I can rotate my text around a little bit that way. There it is. Or I can even, in this one, just kind of grab it and just rotate around like that. I'll stick it just here, just a little bit of a rotation, not much on that. So there's a basic 3D, and extruded that and give it a default setting in there. And the way you work with the 3D is over here on our 3D panels. We have our 3D text. Right there we have our lighting and our cameras. We'll leave all those alone. What we care about here is a 3D text, and you'll see we have different things. 3D text front inflation material, 3D text front bevel material, we don't have any right now. Extrusion material, see where it goes black on the edges? That's what we're talking about. So the 3D text front inflation material, that's the face, the front face. There's no bevel right now. 3D text extrusion is the sides, and then the back bevel we can't see. It's kind of hiding in behind there. So those are our different surfaces. If we double click on this icon right in front of that, that brings up the materials for that surface, and in here we can change the look. The easy way is just to grab one of the default settings in here. I'll just choose that one, and it applies that setting. Now this has a bump to it. I'm going to pull the bump clear out, so it's just a nice smooth front surface. There we go, and close that down. Now we have other controls up across the top here. The next control is the 3D text, allowing us to actually work with the layout. Click on the little icon here, double click rather. And this allows us to adjust how the 3D text behaves on the background. We can choose to cast shadows or not. There's our shadows. Catch shadows. In other words, shadows from other things will be casting shadows on these different objects. And we can choose different presets in here. Here's one that has a bevel on it. Right there, that's our front bevel. You can see kind of a beveled edge is now showing in there. There's our little bevel. And you can change the text color if you want. Right there, you can really see that beveled edge now. Let's change the text color to kind of a blue color. So we have our text color, and we already had that front color which we've already changed previously. So here we can also adjust the extrusion depth. So I can make the letters real deep or real shallow, or even come clear out to the front. Oh, just a little bit of extrusion depth, kind of like that. There we go. We can close that down. Go back here to the first icon, puts us back into our environment view. So we have our 3D bevel effect. We can see some shadowing going on in that. We have our nice flat faces in here. We now go back to layers. You can see there is that 3D text layer. So we're all set. We don't want to put an environment in here, but I'm first going to make a copy of this. I'm going to hide all this stuff. Just hide that set. Let's drag this down to the new layer. It'll give me a new 3D layer. I can hide that 3D layer. So I have two backups now. My text without 3D, my text with 3D, and then this layer up here. I'm just going to right click on this layer, and we're going to convert this to a smart object. There it is. So now it's just a picture, and I can actually move this around anywhere I want to in here. I can make it look more interesting by using my other tools, edit, transform, perspective, for instance, and I can adjust that a bit on that perspective, get more of a perspective look, and it will still look good because we have those 3D edges in there. So you can tweak that a little bit. It's not real 3D tweaking, but it still works. It still looks like as if it's 3D. Okay, so we have our text. We need to put a surface in here now and a background. So I'm going to come down just below that text layer, put a new layer in. There we are. Let's put a gradient on that. Our gradient tool. Let's drag that straight down and make a gradient in behind. So we can now kind of see it in an environment. I want to have a table that it's sitting on. This part's easy. Let's make a new layer. Grab the rectangular marquee tool, and somewhere in the middle I'll just pull down like that and create a rectangular space. Now we're going to be using a filter on this, so I had to have some content in here for the filter to work. So I'm just going to fill that with black. It doesn't matter what it is. It just has to have some kind of content in that area. We can now deselect that. Let's go ahead and work with this. Actually, I think I'll leave that selected just in case. There we go. Okay, filter and render. I want fibers right here. There we go. Now this allows you to come through and create different fibering effects, and some of these tend to look a lot like wood. This find one that you like, I'll just leave it right there. You can adjust the settings in here to change the effect, and that puts in this kind of a wood look, fiberish effect. Let's now deselect that. We need to have some wood coloring on this. So image, adjustments, hue, saturation, and I'm going to colorize this. Click on colorize, and that gives us a colorization. Now we have white and then the brown sections. To bring that white down to a color, move the lightness control to the left. Darkens the whole thing down, but it gives me color instead of white. Bring the saturation up for more vibrant effects, and somewhere in there you get a good wood tone, and then adjust the hue just a little bit, kind of in there. Choose OK. Alright, Now it looks like it's vertical. We don't really have that effect of it being a table. That's easy to do. We just need to get these things going into a perspective to give that table effect. And we can do that with our perspective tool. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. And we're on that layer still. Edit, transform, perspective. I'll just pull the bottom out like that. Apply that. And that gives us that perspective effect in there. So there we go. That's 3D text sitting on a surface. Notice that we have our drop shadow in there. That came right with the 3D. Pretty easy to do. Now on my example I had brighter lettering in here. Since we colored that separately, I can come in and I can actually zoom in on the letters and then just use my select tool to select the lettering like that. And I'm using the add at this point, so we'll just come in here and get all of our lettering selected. There we go. Once I have that done, I can then just change that coloration. Let's fill this with a new color. So I'll just choose a color over here. Let's find something nice and bright. A nice bright yellowish kind of a thing in here. Like that. I think I'll put it on a new layer just to be safe. And grab the paint bucket. Fill the lettering. There we go. We can now deselect that. Now keep in mind that this is on a separate layer, so that if you want to move them around, you want to make sure you move both layers. And let's fit that back into our screen. And there we go, just standard 3D text sitting on a surface. And we can move it around, resize, whatever. Just make sure you're doing it on both layers at the same time. Okay, so that's our first look. Let's now take a look at our second look in here, just a little fast logo kind of spin thing, and let's see how this is done. This is also done with the 3D tool. Before we do that, let's just close down our other layers. That's the new one. That was my demo right there. Yeah, I'm not going to bother saving that. So there we go. Now if we look over here at the right side, you see I have 3 layers in here. Just a white background, nothing unusual about that. I have my orange, and then a white, and then a blue logo layer. So I actually have 3 things going on. The only reason for the 2 here is to have control for that real thin outline. I could have done it different ways. I could have put a stroke on this or other things, but that's just the way I did it on this particular demo. Let's now see how we get that swirling effect. That's the most important part of this whole trick, is this swirl. So let's first choose our color. I'll come over here and grab that blue, which is right there. So my blue is set, and we now can come in and work with this one. So let's make a new file, and I'll adjust my size again in here to the one that I like to use the most. New file right there. We want to have a bit of text in it that just says logo. And resize that. And I'm going to change the typeface on this. Let's just go up here. I think I used Bauhaus on that one, so I'll go up a little bit. There we go, Bauhaus 93. Nice little typeface. Again, if you don't have Bauhaus, you can do a search for that online. Just do a search for Bauhaus 93 font, and you'll get that font. So there's the basic text. I'm going to copy this layer. So I have that in reserve. I can get back to that if I need to. And we're going to now extrude this to 3D. So type extrude to 3D. There's the basic 3D extrusion at this point. Nothing very exciting about that, just a real basic 3D extrusion. And again, same thing we had last time. Over here we have all of our different tools on this. Let's go over to the second of our options. This is the 3D controls, and double click on that, and this brings up the basic properties for the shape, and we can adjust our extrusion depth, texture mapping, text, and so forth. Lots of other tools up here. We have a deform tool. I'm going to actually deform the image. There's our extrusions again. You see we have some deformations in here that actually spin that image and spin it around like a donut shape and so forth. And that's what we're going to be using. We're going to use this one right here. So I'm going to show you that again. That's where you'll be when you first make your extrusion. Click on the second icon up here, and this gives you the properties for your shape. Double click, brings up your properties panel, and go to the deform option right here, and we're just going to grab that one. And that, as you can see, it kind of spins that logo around that way, giving you a circular logo. If I come over here to a different one, we have a different kind of a spinning effect. There it is. You see how we have all these different presets in here that we can use for different looks. There's kind of a rounded surface. And here's kind of a fat extrusion in there. Here's a, going off into the distance, kind of an extrusion. And there is one that I actually used for the demo. It just kind of spins that around, gives it that kind of a spun effect. We have some more in here. Other interesting little effects. There we go, kind of a reverse effect. Strange little effects. So take a look at these things. There's the bevel we used on the first text. And there it is. So close that down. Let's go back in here. And there is that spinning effect on that. Now you can control the lighting in here if you want to. All kinds of settings in here to control your lighting effects. Notice that our first one here, the front inflation material. Let me bring that back out again. Oh. There we go. Let me try that one more time. There's what I want. Front inflation material is the face of the letters. The front bevel, there's the extrusion material. That's that swirling bit. So in here you can come in and play around with your settings if you want to and change the effect that it has. Notice if I bring up the reflection, it's a little bit lighter in there. I can even change the material that I'm working with to a different material if you want to. So you have lots of options in here to adjust these things. I'll leave all these at their defaults though for this quick video. Go back to our layers. There's the spun layer. Let's now grab the logo copy. I'll move that above. There is that copy. Let's give this a nice orangey kind of a color to it. Triple click and bring our color picker up here, and let's just find a nice happy orange. Be a little bit darker. There's that logo, basic look. And again, I can adjust the background coloration. I can even use other tools in here to adjust the values of that to make it a little more apparent if I wanted to. And let's just give this an outline. I'll do it differently this time. Layer and layer style. Let's give this a stroke. Change the color up here to white. And adjust the width on that. And there we go. Real fast, interesting kind of a logo effect using the 3D tool to get that spun background trick in there. So it's actually using a 3D effect for that spun background trick. Okay, we're now going to move over and take a look at our last technique here, which is the type sitting on a surface like that. First thing I'm going to do though is close down these other colors in here, closing these other options. I'm not going to bother saving that one. And there we go. We'll now take a look at this one. Let's start by making a new file. File new. There we go. And I'll adjust my size again. 21 by 15. There we are. And let's just set our basic text. Now in this one I'm using a type that's right above the Bauhaus. It's called AR Destine. It's just kind of a hard-edged typeface. There are lots of good hard-edged faces. I think they work out better than the other faces. And again, it's a real square kind of blocky face. And you can find this if you do a search online for that. And I'll type in logo. Let's adjust the size, edit, transform scale, and get a nice size for our text. There we are. And again, I'll save this, make a duplicate, and then just hide that. We can always then come back to that copy later if we need to. So there's our new basic text. We can extrude this now, or we can start off with a basic color for our text. I'm going to go ahead and colorize this text first. And let's find a nice kind of orangey color. There we go. And then let's extrude this. Type extrude to 3D. There's our basic extrusion on that. At this point, you can come in, you can adjust things if you want to. We have all of our settings in here. Notice it's still using the one that we used before, so that's still fine. So you have all of our settings in there. You may want to adjust that extrusion a little bit. That's going to be under the 3D controls over here. Double click on the icon and adjust your extrusion depth. I'll bring it down just a bit like that. Right in there somewhere. It looks pretty good. Okay, so we have our basic 3D text layer now. I'm going to make a copy of this layer, and we'll hide that 3D so I can get back to that 3D layer if I need to. Actually, I'm going to hide the one that says copy. I'll just pull that down so I can keep things easy to see. So that all looks fine. We now need to come in and change our background down here. We'll change the background color to something just kind of a nice light bright yellow in the same range as we have there. I'll just kind of bright yellow like that, and we're going to fill this background with that bright yellow. So far so good. We're going to convert the background now to a 3D object. Up here to 3D, new mesh from layer and postcard, and that's now a postcard. It's now an actual 3D image. I could move that around if I wanted to, but I'm not going to be doing that. So we have two 3D layers now. This one up here and this background. Again, these are hidden. We're not using those. I'll hold the control key down. We'll select both of these two layers, the logo 3D layer and the background 3D layer. Come up here to 3D, and we'll merge those 3D layers together. Okay, they're now merged together. And if I move it around a bit here, see if we can grab this and actually adjust it so you can see that. See, there's the 3D logo in there. See how that's adjusted, and you can also see how there we go, how this is right in the middle of that plane. So I'm just going to use my control key here to back out of that. So we have our 3D and our logo all set up. That looks good. We're now ready to go ahead and rasterize this layer. Notice it says background again. It's ready to rasterize this layer. Up to 3D and render, and it's going to go through now and then render the 3D for us. Now this can take a long time. You'll see there we're seeing our 3D effect again, and you can begin to see the glow up in there around that. So it builds our glow for us. I'll let it do a couple of these quick passes, and there's a second pass. It gets a little bit finer on this second pass. But you can see the glowing effect is already beginning to happen for us. It's pulling that glow from that background yellow. And the edges, of course, are going to be in shadow and so forth. Now, again, this can take quite a while. Expect it to take who knows, hour or so to do this. Depends upon the size of your image that you're working with and also the speed of your computer. So I'm going to just pause the video record at this point. I'll let this go ahead and finish the rendering of the 3D, and once the rendering is finished, I'll bring the video back up again and we'll take a look at the finish on this. So go ahead and pause, and I'll be right back. It'll seem like a moment to you, it'll seem like an hour to me. And there we go. There it is with the full rendering on that. It took about an hour and a half or so to finish that rendering. Let's now take this a step further and grab the magic wand. I'm going to set the tolerance up here to about 15, and I'll come in and select inside of each of these faces on this lettering, just like that. Let's make a new layer. There we go. We have our selection. We're now going to fill this with a different color. Let's just, we're here, kind of a bright yellow, the same family as you can see. I'm going to grab the paintbrush here. Make sure your opacity and fill are both at 100. That's good. Your blending mode is normal. That's fine. And then we can just fill this with this brighter color. Once this has been filled, we of course can adjust this color using the different adjustment tools, hue, saturation, brightness, contrast, whatever you want to use to modify that color. You can go ahead and do it, even change the color if you want to with the hue saturation effect. But this just makes sure that we have a nice clean fill in here. I'm just going around the edges to make sure I don't miss anything on this. You could also try the paint bucket, but I found that this gives me a more solid. Sometimes the paint bucket will not quite fill in completely. So I go the extra step and just make sure that I paint the whole thing. And there we go, just about got it. Deselect that. That looks good. Nice bright surface now on that logo. So there's without. There it is with. Last thing to do is to put a style on this, a layer style. Go up here to Layer and Layer Style. Let's take a look at the stroke. And we can put this outside or inside. I'll go for the inside. Let's change the color here to white. And let's change the size a little bit. There we go. Just get a nice little bit of white lining on that. Choose OK. And there we go. There's our fancy logo with some light on it and placed onto a wall, just like that. So you can see a few steps to go through to get this, and there is that long wait for the render process, but it's well worth it to get a real nice, interesting look. And again, this is because the lettering itself is on its own layer. The face of this is completely customizable. Gradient you want in there, change the effects, whatever you feel like, it all can be done on that layer. So there we go. That's how to use 3D to create different 3D style texts. One question that I frequently get asked about these 3D techniques is, can you do this without having 3D? You can probably manage this one here. The other 3D where I had more of a 3D angle on it, you can fake that by drawing in the back sides of the letter, but it takes a lot more work to do that. Use your perspective and then draw your back sides in. This one is probably relatively doable. We just have to analyze what the picture looks like. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and we'll take a look at this. You notice that we have our 3D sides showing in here. There's a little 3D side right there and has a gradient on that. It's a little edge here, but that probably isn't needed. A little bit of a side here. So you could, using your different selection tools, actually create that shape in there and then put a gradient on that, light to dark, real fast right by this letter, and fill that in and get that effect. You can do the same thing here. You could just create a little polygon right there, fill that in with that color and get that effect. Notice we don't really have anything in here. There's a little bit right there, but it's kind of hard to see. But that's not a real difficult piece to create. And same thing over here. There's nothing visible in the G. It's just a flat letter with some shading behind it, so that's no big deal. And then on the final O, again, we have a little bit of this edge showing, and again, that can be free-handed as a selection and then filled in with a little bit of a gradient to create the effect of there being a 3D shape on here. So if you had a sample to work from like we have here, you could fake this using just selections and then filling those selections with little bits of gradient. Now in behind, this is all fairly easy here. Notice it's just a dark to light gradient first, mostly inside of the letters in here. And that can be done as a layer in behind your letters. And then you can fade that out on the sides using layer masks or whatever. And the same thing for the top. There's a little bit of a glow right in there. And that can also be done just as a little gradient on a transparent layer above your letters. Actually, that would be right underneath your letters but above your background. And the letters just mask that out. So you can, if you wanted to, take the time to do it. You could recreate this as just flat art if you didn't happen to have access to the 3D tools. It is very doable to do that. It just takes more time. It's real easy, as you can see here. But realistically speaking, I did have to wait an hour and a half for the rendering to go in here. I probably could have recreated this whole thing in less time by hand without the 3D tools than to wait for the rendering of the 3D tools. But that would defeat the purpose of the video, of course, which is how to use those 3D tools. But answer to that question, yes, you can. If you wanted to take the time, you can create the 3D shapes or the appearance of 3D shapes inside of Photoshop with just 2D tools. The main thing that you would be losing is you couldn't manipulate this shape inside of a 3D environment. So I couldn't come back here to my 3D and rotate it, for instance, or change its position around, change the angles. I couldn't do any of that 3D space stuff. But as far as the final positioning, sure, you can. With some time spent, you can recreate that using just the 2D tools if you want to. Okay, so there we go. That's a look then at working with 3D inside of Photoshop. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series, along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.